Okay, welcome to Hopeifiers. My name is the Acapellist. I'm waiting for brother Scott Sweetman to join me. I don't think he forgot. I talked to him earlier today, so I'm sure he'll be along shortly. While I'm at it, while we're waiting for Scott, how about I tell you a story that I say that I should listen to my wife more often. How about that story? I had this tractor that I bought last year that's attached to a manure spreader. So you put the manure in, drive it around the field, it flings the manure all over, gets on the field. And so it's going to be fertilizer and reuse that manure. So hang on one second. Let me send Scott a note. Hey, Scott, you joining us? Okay, so I hadn't driven it. Last year we bought it, and my friend John was driving it, so I hadn't actually driven it. And the transmission was super complicated. It's got like 4 different gates and like 3 options at each gate. Really kind of hard to figure out how this transmission even worked, like to find reverse and what gear you're in. So I'm going to go and find it, go do it, run this tractor. I've never ran it before. So I was running it the other day, and I figured out where 4th was and where 7th was. And with the manure spreader, then the faster you drive, the quicker you get across the field, right? Is the idea. So I go and I'm driving it, and I was running it in 7th gear, which is really fast. Oh, here's comes Scott. Hey, Scott.
Hi, Alan. How are you?
Good. I was just in the middle of telling a story about that I entitled that I should listen to Corolla more often. Do you want to hear the rest of it, or do you want to hear it from the start?
No, what? I'll hear the rest of it.
Okay, I bought this tractor. I hadn't driven it before, and it was connected to a manure spreader. And then, so just this week, I went to drive it for the first time. It had a real super complicated transmission. I finally got it figured out. And so I'm driving this thing, spreading manure in the field. Your camera went out. I thought, oh, he doesn't want to talk to me anymore.
No, I'm sorry, Al. I'm having camera trouble.
That's okay. So anyways, I'm going to drive this on the field to spread the manure. And this tractor has this huge air suspension in the seat, or maybe it's spring suspension, but a lot of travel in the seat suspension, right?
Right.
So I'm driving it as fast as I can, 7th gear, and it's like bouncing and bouncing around, and I'm falling. My head hits the top of the cab a couple times, and I'm like, it's like I'm running in a dune buggy track or something. I'm bouncing and weaving and hitting gopher holes, and the tires are flying up in the air. And so Corolla says to me, honey, I think you might be a little hard on that tractor, on that equipment. And I said, oh, yeah, no, don't worry about it. It's got all that suspension in the seat. You can go fast with it. I'm sure it's all right. So not 15 minutes after, I disconnected it, and the shaft, the PTO shaft, came off and broke and went flying in the air. I couldn't find it for 2 days. Corolla just found the shaft. It went flying in the field.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
And then she comes over to help me connect it. And she says, do you think it would be appropriate if I said, I told you so? And I said, yes, honey, it would be very appropriate for you to say, I told you so. So anyways, there was my excitement, and one of those things where you kind of gain a little bit of self-awareness. You got your camera figured out?
No, I don't. Just hold on here. I'm having StreamYard and I, as you know, do not get along. I will certainly not be recommending them.
Okay.
I don't know why. Well,
okay.
I know why. Okay, hold on. I'm just trying. It's there. Do I look at least like a human being? Okay.
Yeah, you got a bookcase behind you. You look all good.
Okay.
All right.
Things are a little crazy, but I'm good. Okay. Good. That is a great story. And yes, you should always listen to Corolla more. We all should.
Exactly.
That's good.
Yes. So what do we have to share about hope and increasing hope? Certainly was a little bit cloudy cloudy, a little chilly this morning, but this afternoon it, still a little chilly, but it ended up pretty darn nice.
It did. It did end up sort of as a nice day. I have
Yes.
some interesting stuff today, and I'm just finding my note here because I have a quote that I want to use.
Sure.
And so, on Hopeifiers, we don't hide anything. We talk about everything and anything, and sometimes we go astray, but mostly we stay on task. And I'm always looking around for ideas that we can talk about and things that we may not directly consider. And when I was looking at hope and how people go about hope, we talk a lot about the things we use, right? Like, what do you use, Al? For anyone who may not know.
Well, I'm a big fan of singing as something to stabilize my mood, elevate my energy, and help me physically. Matter of fact, that's all I do now. I don't exercise anymore. I sing an hour a day, and
Oh,
I've been dropping weight and getting stronger and feeling better, and just by singing. So for me, that
amazing.
works. It's like does everything. It's like a cure-all. If I could bottle that up, I could sell it for whatever, $50 a little bottle.
Cool. Well, and for me, I've talked about a lot of things I use. And as we've discussed, I'm a Christian, I'm an Anglican, and I was raised as a Christian, although not an Anglican. We were allowed to make a choice. My family's, I have Scottish, Irish, German, and English. And so they all came from different churches in my family. So us kids were allowed to choose which, or if we didn't want to be baptized. So, but obviously, I have a degree in comparative religion, and I believe in people's ability to choose their own faith, and it's all, I think, beneficial to humankind. So I was looking at that, and I was thinking a lot about people, because we were discussing with the Ukrainian crisis going on and with the family that we know there, one of the problems they're having is they're quite strong Catholics.
Mm.
And they're having trouble maintaining their faith because of what they're seeing go on around them every day. And they're praying for help, they're praying for.
So, wait a minute. Catholics are persecuted more than other Ukrainians, is what you're suggesting? Or
No, I'm just saying that people we know are
Yeah,
Catholic, and
right,
they're devout Catholics, so they're praying to God that it will end and people will be safe. And
right. But when you said about their faith, just that it's a hard time to maintain faith, not like that, and a hard time to get together, I'm sure, as well, right? Like, how do you get
yeah,
together to share your faith, to have your communion, to have your fellowship, right?
well, I was going there, and I was going to say one of the number one reasons people stop practicing religion or lose their faith is when really bad things happen to people that obviously didn't do anything wrong. And,
Hmm.
and there's been a lot of research by people right here in our community. Reginald Bibby is well known in the community as a researcher in sociology and religion. And it's when a child dies unexpectedly or through violence, or like we're seeing in the Ukraine, where there's innocence being killed, and prayer doesn't seem to help. And so a lot of people go through this process. And I was looking at that, and I was thinking, okay, so we're Hopeifiers, we tackle these things, right? We like to hear when people are struggling with hope, because that's what we try and do, is encourage people to maintain their hope, to grow the tools they need to maintain that, and be healthier, happier people because of hope, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so in my research, I came across the benefits of secular prayer. Have you ever heard of secular prayer?
I don't think I have, actually. No, I would like to hear more.
Well, that's what I thought. I've heard of it before, and
Okay.
you can sort of figure it out, right? Because of
Yeah.
its title, secular, non-religious prayer. And so it comes out of a background of a lot of mental health, a lot of treating addictions, treating trauma, abuse patients, a lot of different areas have done a lot of research into this. And it was really interesting for me, because there's a lot of scientific evidence that secular prayer does improve psychological and physiological conditions in people that practice it who have suffered trauma or addiction or those types of things. And so, just so we don't get flamed here, as I said, I personally am a Christian and an Anglican, and I pray to God in the traditional way. Not saying that that's wrong, not saying that's right, not saying that's better, but I am saying that I discovered a very interesting vein of self actualization called secular prayer. And one of the areas, and I knew this would interest you, okay, because I know how hard you're working on establishing a better understanding of the relationship and the position of women in our society and culture, and how men can escape from the man box and be supportive and not pandering to that, but actually improving the situation. And so one of the objections, or one of the things that people found hard, and it makes perfect sense, and of course it's not something we like to talk about a lot, but women that have gone through sexual violence, typically by men, some of them express finding it very difficult then to pray to a male figure that is omnipotent and is their father, if you will. And unfortunately in our society there are interfamily sexual abuse and all of those horrible things. So and the person who they interviewed in this article was a woman that had gone through a lot of sexual abuse and physical trauma when she was young, and she had become an alcoholic because of that. And they were using secular prayer as a way to help her recover. And so there's a lot of research, and I can put a link in our profiles later, but
Sure.
like this person said, that as an adult, praying to a male authority figure felt very compromising given the trauma and abuse that they'd felt, right?
I understand that. Sure, that makes sense. And so you're getting to it. Sorry, go carry on. I'm sure you're going to explain more about secular prayer. So are you just praying to a force? Is that what you're praying to? Or are you praying to? But you're going to get to that.
No, that's a great question, because her friend, somebody said, well, pray to Wonder Woman, or pray to the great universe, or the great mother, or any of these things. But a psychologist that she was working with, and a doctor in, I think she's also a psychologist, Covington, suggests that women benefit more from envisioning their higher power as a co-manager, not a boss. And I found that really interesting. And so they've done a lot of research, and this is a quote from Dr. Covington. It said, instead of being submissive, we can envision an interactive relationship in which we nurture our higher power as much as it nurtures us.
And you know what? Just in general terms, how much easier is life if you have some sort of connection or belief in something beyond you, right? That you have a source to draw on for love, compassion, for energy, for health, for healing, for any, like, that you have access to this. How much easier does life become, right? You're part of a beneficent world, and you have access to these resources by having that belief.
That was actually my thesis in my Religious Studies 4000 capstone course, was that there are no true atheists, right? So that we all, by nature, in the darkest moment, reach out to something beyond ourselves. And
Right.
that, when we witness birth, and of course we understand the biology and all of those things, but when it comes right down to it, there's sort of that seed in everyone that, and I've never met anyone personally that, when you really get talking to them, doesn't admit that there's something that causes awe in them, and that they can't explain, that they don't even really want to explain. They're just happy with the fact that there's something out there greater than they are, or awe-inspiring.
I've been thinking about this a lot, as you know, in some of the conversations we have. And basically, if you think about in the most simplest terms, we have a heartbeat. We got the miracle of breath that happens every 4 seconds, right? That miracle occurs. So we have that life-giving force that keeps that emotion, right? Keeps that happening. And so then our connection to life-giving force, or to that source of life-giving force, is something that we then can take strength and support from, that we are connected to this life-giving force. And because we are all connected to this life-giving force, well, then we are all part of the same life-giving force. We're just individual, individual, no, individuations. There's the word, individuations of divinity, or individuations of that life force, that source of life force. So we're all connected. So I wouldn't want to harm you, because I'm harming me in the process, right? And really, what I want to do is help you achieve whatever your soul's purpose is, and you are helping me achieve my soul's purpose, right? And that soul's purpose collectively is how we elevate humanity. What do we do to make life better for human beings, right? And how do we make it a more equitable and a more just way? And how do we make it where people get everything they need, and then they can have the full experience of life and the enjoyment, and have supports, and have enough food, and have enough resources, and have enough opportunities, right? So yeah.
Interesting in what you're saying. Do you know the largest organism on Earth?
The largest organism on Earth?
Yeah.
No.
It's actually a type of willow. It's trees, and it's spread out over kilometers, but they're all connected via a root system. So it's actually one organism, but from the top, they look like individual trees. They're not.
Interesting.
Yes. And so I always think of people a lot like that. So
that's a beautiful example. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can look it up. Largest organism on Earth. And I can't remember the genesis of the tree. I think it's from the willow family.
Oh, but you know what that works so nicely with? Root chakra. Right? You know how you have this line of chakras. So we're connected like trees with this common root, and our root chakra is our connection to that collective energy, that collective force, that collective, strength and power, and beauty and pleasure and love, and those kind of forces, right? So
I always think there's examples in nature, and I think there's always answers in nature. And I know that in the historical development of science, that's exactly where we looked, right? Is we developed the ability to, observe scientifically what's going on around us, and, build modern science based on that. And so when I see something like this, organism that's millions of parts, and well, I mean, billions, we are too, but these trees, if you look at them, they're all individuals. It looks like. But when you go below the surface, they're actually one organism. And I'd like to think of people, and especially when we're in terms of conflict, or when you don't agree, it could be your neighbor that doesn't like something you've done, is that deep down at a root level, like you say, there's a connection between us all, and if we connect to that. But
hey, do you know any people on this planet who are less than 100% human?
No.
Everybody 100% human, everybody, right? So, and that's kind of the other thing, that the common tie we have, right? We're all connected because we're all come from that same source. We're all 100% human, no matter what color, religion, sexual orientation, whatever. It doesn't matter, right? So,
well, and we make divisions so that sometimes divisions are useful. If you're playing badminton or tennis, it's our team and their team. That's a useful thing, to play a fun game and enjoy yourself. But when it comes down to, we're going to divide people so that these people gain an advantage or a privilege or a benefit, then obviously that is detrimental. But jumping back to secular prayer, and they did a big study on African American teens struggling with depression.
Yes.
And so in this study, and this isn't limited to America, and it's not limited to those that identify as African Americans, but statistically, people that are economically or socially disadvantaged, or groups that are identified and suffer that, deal a lot with depression and all the things that come out of depression. So they did quite an extensive survey, and I'm reading it. That's why I'm looking down to make sure I get it right, because I don't want to mumble my way through it. Is that they reported feeling worse when they were encouraged to pray for God to fix everything. On the other hand, those that prayed with a sense of personal initiative that allowed them to work with a higher power showed increased agency, hope, and leadership to seek therapeutic and other support. And so they're talking about how believing in a higher power really helps those who want to help themselves or who believe in helping themselves. It's the opposite of what you would intuitively believe, right?
Right.
You know, I've heard people say, "Well, I don't believe in religion. I'm not a follower. Nobody's going to help me but myself." Well, science and psychology and surveys are saying that those people often benefit the most from believing in a higher power that they work with.
Right. Yeah, makes real good sense to me. Right.
Now,
and then
sorry, go ahead.
Well, and then also just related to that same and related to our interconnectiveness, right, where we all come from the same source, then it also should make it easy to ask for help. And it also should make it easy to offer help, right? Those things should come easy, right? You have some kind of issue, I have some kind of issue, and we have the means to help each other resolve that issue, even if it's, the other day I was pulling up the A&W and there's this guy standing there and he was I didn't know what he was doing. So I stopped and, "How you doing?" And he said, "Oh yeah, no, I'm kind of hungry." I said, "Okay, well, you wait right here. I'll go get you some foods." Cause I was pulling into the thing. Right. So we had a nice little chat and a conversation. He told me he was from BC and he came here because he felt he was beckoned here. He was called here and that he would be safe here. Great. So somehow he has access to some intuition that's a guide for him. Whatever is coming, if it's guiding him in a safe direction, that seems like a pretty positive thing. So
you hit on a point that that clicked just when you were talking about it a moment ago, and that's the difference between and what you said and the survey I was just talking about is that people who prayed for a fix didn't feel as good as people who prayed for help fixing. Right. And so what you're saying is that not necessarily when solving other people's problems, which you really can't do.
Right. Yes.
But when you help them solve their problems is what, so in this case, maybe giving that fellow money wouldn't have actually solved his problem, but helping him by giving him a meal helped him get past that trouble and past that point and move on to whatever he needed to do next.
You know what? I don't even know if he was hungry, but also having a conversation, right? I recognize him as 100% human individual who he's having some challenges, and we have a little conversation, and that was that. I felt better for offering anyways, right? So, yeah.
But I think what we've uncovered here, it's exciting because, as I said, this is an area that it's not completely new to me, but I really like the research that's coming out of this area, is that we're understanding more that helping is not fixing. And I know as men, and I speak as a man to another man who has been in the man box for a long time, you and I,
yes,
have, is that
we're closer to getting out there. We're almost out, Scott. I think we are. I think we're breaking out of the man box, you and me, buddy.
I hope so. But it's in our nature to want to fix things.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's one of the things that we learn when we're with somebody for a long time. We learn that they don't really want us to fix their problems, right? Like, how many times does Corolla actually want you to take over and fix your problems? Usually
zero.
That usually results in a rebuke of some kind in my household anyway.
Exactly.
So yes. And it's like having daughters, and like your daughter, they don't want us to come in and fix things. I guess we have this fantasy that we're the dad, we're the man, we're going to come in, Prince Charming, woohoo, we're going to fix everything. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if it's in us by nature or if it's built into us through conditioning and whatever. But we're getting to the point that not only men, but everyone has to realize that you can't fix someone else.
No.
You can help them. And I think that people often get disappointed because they come in thinking they'll fix a problem. Yeah. I know my aunt and uncle, and I mentioned this before, belong to a church group in Lacombe, and they've been to Africa and other places, obviously Africa is a continent, not a country, but countries in Africa. And they go there, and instead of just sending money to build a school, they actually go there themselves, and they meet the people, and they say, okay, how can we help? Like, what do you need
Beautiful.
to make things better?
Yeah.
And often it's not what they imagined when they were back in Canada. Often it's something different. And it's not usually, oh, do this and our lives will be perfect. It's, if you can help us with this, it will let us better help ourselves, improve our education, our sanitation, our access, whatever.
Scott, did I ever tell you about my Rotary Club is involved, and a bunch of Rotary clubs are involved in this school in Malawi, this girls' school in Malawi. Did I ever tell you this?
No, I don't think so.
Anyways, it's a girls' school in Malawi.
Yeah, generally, okay.
Yeah, makes a huge, huge difference, right? Because otherwise, these girls have like no opportunity. They don't get any education, though they are at risk of getting raped on a regular basis, right? When they're trying to go to the bathroom or whatever. And so they become moms when they're like 12, and then have like, really challenging lives, right? And so this school is a way that they could get an education. And this one person, Manis is her name, Manis, I think is how I'm pronouncing it. She goes and she graduates from the school in the first graduating class, goes on to get I believe she's got her doctorate, if I recall correctly. But even while she's in school in Malawi, she was able to change the whole dynamic of her family by eliminating the violence that was happening in her family. Like,
wow.
And by eliminating the food insecurity they had, like they didn't have enough to eat. But because she was engaged in that way, she had enough resources to keep herself healthy and to make a difference there, and now to go and make a difference with her education and come back and change things in her village, in her country. And what a beautiful story. That's one person, one of the, I don't know how many girls are in that school, 200 or something, but one story about the ripple effect of what kind of difference she's going to make. That's beautiful.
But it's a story about not fixing, but helping, right?
That's right. And if I can add one other thing too, when you're talking about what you pray for, whomever you're praying for, if it's a secular force or if it's just, asking, I think a lot of it, and I'm getting this from Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith, is basically where you are enough for whatever challenge comes your way. You're enough for whatever challenge comes your way. So what you pray for is you pray for the resources that you are enough. Like, I'm going to need some patience for this. Creator, please help me with a little bit of patience, because this is not my strong suit, right? Or I'm going to need whatever it is to kind of get through this, right? Or to contribute fully to this, I'm going to need to be more, slow myself down, or be more sensitive, or be more caring, or whatever that thing that you're going to need to be able to effectively pull that off. So it looks like you have an eagle or something on your shoulder there, man.
Yeah, and I having camera problems here.
Okay.
Too bad. My light just fell off here. I will have this fixed by next week.
All right. Perfect.
Perfect. Crazy here. So yeah, let me see if I still have. I'm getting two images. That's the problem out. Okay, that's not working. But I think in that example and the one that I was reading about just now,
yes,
so much that it really is understanding the difference between wanting to help and wanting to fix. And so it's sort of been a twofer tonight. We've talked about the value of believing in a higher power,
yes,
and the value of secular prayer if you're not, someone who likes organized religion or can take that path. Obviously, it depends on your tradition, but in my tradition, we learned that we were praying for help, not a solution. Like we didn't learn to pray to God to solve problems. We looked for guidance and wisdom and those types of things. So really, I think what we're trying to get out of this is there's lots of different options available, and I think that if you're someone that's having difficulty accepting a higher power or adding that into your life. Now, meditation is good. There's lots of other options here, but I found it really interesting that most people who are raised in a religious environment understand the mechanism of prayer, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. And you know, I can understand how there's some reservations if you think kind of God let you down, or God allowed something to happen. I get that, but really you can kind of you can what would I say? You can change, you can modify your religious belief, your spiritual belief, really to be something that works for you. Don't you think? Like, I mean,
Absolutely. And these examples that I'm looking at here, that's exactly what they're talking about, is that religion can also be a very, and I think it should be a very internal relationship, right?
okay,
That it,
Scott, could you see on the screen? I have a little a note that I put there.
yeah,
Do you see it?
awakening, I'm not going to try and stumble through it, but
Kundalini,
awakening for energy, ecstasy, and bliss.
Kundalini Awakening for Energy, Ecstasy, and Bliss. I'm taking this course.
Nice. Is it a good
It's
course?
I've only taken an hour of it so far. I had the free hour, and I said, okay, I'm in. I think it's going to be amazing. So yes,
Fantastic. And
yeah.
what tradition is that?
India, Indian, yeah. And the
Really?
guy who teaches this, Raja, was like a film producer, media type guy, big fancy house, lots of money, all that kind of stuff. And then he just kind of meditated and had this spiritual awakening. And then now he's kind of discovered that it's kind of ancient principles, ancient type of things. So he's teaching it, and I'm in.
Nice.
It'll be fun.
Nice. Nice. And how often do you take the course?
It's a 6 week course. I just started it. So yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of courses online. And so if we've perked anyone's interest tonight talking about secular prayer, or talking about, helping give yourself some more tools on your belt, dealing with trauma, dealing with depression, dealing with those things, we really suggest looking online, asking for help, contacting Alan. Of course, you can contact me. I'm happy to help, but Alan has taken some great resource courses like the Navigator course and things to learn about where we can find things locally for people.
You know what? I was chatting yesterday with my friend John Thompson from Lethbridge Family Services. And
Mhm.
one point he made, which I love this, he says about if you're in a place where you don't like where you are, right? But one thing that you have to review is, like, are you willing to, and what kind of changes have you done? And are you open to? Because he says, you have a pattern of how your hands come together like this.
Mhm.
And basically that happened in the womb. And unless you actually go and alter that, change it, you'll do it the same way every time for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
But if you consciously say, hey, I'm going to try this a different way, then you create where you can look at a different solution and maybe find one little change that makes your life 1% better tomorrow. Learn something that makes your life 1% better tomorrow.
we you know we learn, you and I, through coaching and helping people with the shooting sports, is that when you get ramped up, your fine motor skills get taken over, your vision narrows, all of those things. And so what you really have to rely on is skills or habits that you've taught yourself. They're
Yeah.
not, or learned, your done enough, repeated enough times that it becomes an automatic response. So it overrides that, or allows you to work through that natural response to what could be a dangerous situation or competition. Your body responds to, you get ramped up, adrenaline starts to go. It's a type of fighting, if you will, combat. But the body sees it as in that same way, right? So I think there's so many examples where people can overcome, and it's really interesting. But when I was in coma, when I came out of coma, I had to teach myself how to eat again.
Yeah.
I had to teach myself how to walk again. So I remember for like 2 weeks there, I couldn't bring forks or spoons to my mouth. I couldn't, and I would speak, and to me it seemed like there's words coming out of my mouth, but everyone else would just sort of smile and nod, and it was just gibberish coming out of my mouth. So I had
Mhm.
to learn, and it was the muscles, that wasn't the brain. It was that, I had been basically asleep for 4 months,
Right.
and the fine motor skill was just, the muscle memory had dissipated. But it took a very short period of time, a couple of weeks, until it came back.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
That Jill Bolte Taylor, who had the stroke and it basically shut down her left hemisphere in her brain.
right.
It like eliminated, and then she had to relearn everything. So she only really had her right hemisphere, and she was in this amazingly blissful, worry-free type state, like kind of a child in a, just enthralled with watching an ant, walk along, kind of a thing. But like
Wow.
couldn't read, couldn't talk, couldn't communicate anything, right? So, and then took her 7 years to get all her skills back, right? It because she had all that trauma to her brain, and the trauma you had was huge, right? 4 months in a coma, and your body going wild with adding weight. I don't know how that happens when you don't get the calories, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, our bodies are amazing, and
Yes.
one of the doctors I worked with, and this is right on topic for Hopeifiers, and I'll actually pull up Dr. Valenzuela. He was from South America, and he had been put in a death camp by one of the political regimes there, and
Mm-hmm.
he was a cancer doctor, actually. And so he was put in there because he had spoken out against the government's repression of the people. And of course, you are what you are. So when he was in the camp, of course, he did what he could as a doctor. But he also noticed that some people who were quite healthy would just give up and pass away. And then other people who had all the physical reasons to die didn't, and
Mm.
how some of them didn't lose weight, and how some of them healed and got stronger. And he actually left because he left his MD practice. Obviously he got out of the country when he was liberated from the camp. They were liberated and he came to Canada. He got into helping people with terminal diseases activate that part of the human body that can gain weight when we basically get no calories, that can survive incredible physical and mental trauma that should kill us but doesn't. And so he's retired now, but he wrote at least one book, and I'll pull the title on that's very, very interesting. I know you would like it. Really interesting man. And he used a lot of different methods, hypnosis and a lot of consultation and talking, big spiritual component to help try and connect people to that inner strength that we all have, whether you've locked it away in a closet, or whether you've forgotten about it, or whether other people beat you down until it wilted, but it's still there, right? And I think that's what we're talking about in Hopeifiers always, is about finding what you need to activate that internal strength, to activate that internal hope mechanism.
You know what? And why would you um, argue against having some kind of a capacity, of any kind of a capacity? Why wouldn't you just say, hey, I might? Like, let's say it's intuition, as an example.
Yeah.
Like, why would you say, oh, that's bullshit? I can't have any intuition. There's people who have intuitive capacities, right? That they have it. Is that just something we all have, and then we deny it, and then we don't develop it? Maybe, right?
Well, it's interesting. When I was young, I had a rabbit friend that I played with.
Okay,
And
an imaginary friend, you mean, or
well, it wasn't imaginary for me. That's the
no?
point. Until
No,
my parents told me, you don't really have a rabbit friend.
right.
You're too old now. You have to give up your imaginary friend. And then I didn't have this friend. And there's been some really interesting stuff done on how, when we're children, our reality is different because it's not limited the way it is when we're adults, and we accept all of these things as truths. As you just said, I can't do this because I was told I can't do this.
Right.
That's not real because I was told that's not real.
Yeah.
I can't believe in this because that's stupid because I was told it was stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that affects all of us.
Yeah.
And often we think that the more, again, going back to religious studies, is Dr. Woods, who is a mathematician and a religious studies professor. He would ask people, do you believe in God? And lots of people would put up their hands and say, no, I believe in science. and no, I'm educated, I don't believe in superstition, those kind of things. And he's like, okay, please tell me in science what precludes the existence of a being, an energy, a god. What in science proves this doesn't exist? Because I'm an advanced mathematician. That's Dr. Woods, not me talking. It's
Right,
terrible
right.
math. But
Yeah.
and he said, the math I do, if anything, proves that there is something beyond our science.
Yeah.
We can explain how the universe moves out and model it and all these things, but where that first thing came from, nothing.
Why do our hearts keep beating? Why does breath keep entering our body? Why do we get that miracle?
Going back to one of these people that were looking at secular prayer, and this is a woman that was working in communities and using secular prayer, and she said in all her pastoral care work, and this is inner cities and again in that urban disadvantaged economic and social and really the dark heart of cities, she said she never ever once prayed for intervention, not ever to make someone well. Alone and for others, I pray for wisdom, compassion, and you're gonna like this one, connectedness.
I do love it. I'm taking the course, and Stephen Porges is in it again. And Stephen Porges is the polyvagal theory guy, right? That kind of a thing. But disconnection is the disease. Disconnection is why we don't enjoy perfect health. Disconnection is why we have social disorder. It's all disconnection. Once we start making connections, seeing each other as 100% human, and I'm here to hear your voice and see how I might offer you a choice that'll move you forward along your journey. I think we can change the whole course, make life easier.
And I'll throw a little bit of Buddhism in there too, because
let's hear it.
I think we're too connected to physical things we own, things we, and so, the teachings of Buddha and lots of other, wise beings has said that as long as you maintain those connections, as long as you nurture them, you'll never be free. And so what you're talking about is a connectedness, and what Ula, the woman I was just quoting, was talking about was a connectedness to people, not
with each other.
connectedness to how new my car is, how big my bank account is, who's famous that I know, how much power do I have. Those kind of things are the wrong kind of connectedness that are being nurtured by media and advertising and
well, hey, think about this, Scott. If you've decided that your needs are met, like you have enough, let's pretend. What can somebody sell you who sells like cars or jewelry or whatever, vacation homes? If you feel you got enough, if you've decided you have enough, and knowing that everything that you have takes time and energy for you to take care of it, maintain it, fix it, insure it, do all that stuff. Every piece of equipment, which I've had a lot of breakages this year, each piece of equipment, that's like $10,000 waiting to blow up, right? Yeah. $10,000 and 20 hours of my time. So everything that I own kind of owns me. I have an obligation that I got to maintain it and fix it and blah, blah, blah. So, yes.
Yeah. So I think that is something certainly in our affluent societies, some would say privileged. I'm not arguing with either, but certainly in affluent societies, I think that we're programmed to build connections to things and ideas and abstract concepts like prestige and power and those type of connections. And so we spend a lot, as you said, a lot of our energy building those, nurturing those, chasing those, trying to hang on to them once we have them. And we neglect those other connections which really give us strength, right? And what happens to a lot of people is when they lose those things, because all of those things are impermanent. I mean, that's a given. There's nothing that you can own that's permanent.
No,
it's impossible. So at some point they're going to fall apart, they're going to break, they're going to 7 more generations are going to turn to dust, whatever the case is. so making connections to
If
them.
Scott's comments trigger anything, 211 is the 24-hour hotline. Or if
Yes.
mine or Scott's comments to trigger anything.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Sweetman's comments are not intended to trigger, but inevitably they will.
Neither Scott, but just in case we've said something and you said, "Oh my, I'm going to die. I didn't realize that." Call 211, have a chat with those people. And,
yeah, exactly. But I believe certainly that our spirit and our love and our connection to other people is not only infinite, but is immortal. And I think that positive energy that we put out there, I'm a big believer, and I love, the very simple saying that matter can neither be created or destroyed. It merely changes form, right? And so I think that's very, very true. And I think the more love we put out there, it changes form. It may become a meal for somebody who needs it. It may become a hug for somebody who needs that. It may become, whatever somebody needs out there, and it may change form. But that hug just, that love just keeps rippling out there. So I think to build hope, and we've talked a lot tonight about different ways that you can do that. But your point, and I think is underlines everything in Marker, is don't limit yourself. Don't say, oh, that's not going to work because somebody told me it's stupid, or that's not going to work because it's beneath me, or those types of things. There's no harm in trying to add tools to your tool belt.
Nope.
And often, before people understood the vagal nerve or understood those physiological responses in our body, they still did. They knew that singing made them feel better. I mean, people know the things that can help us heal and grow without knowing the science behind it.
You bet. Singing, movement, telling stories, right? Like you think of indigenous tribes in winter, what would they do? They'd be telling stories and talking about, sharing cultural values and sharing the connection with each other, right? That's you wouldn't be doing anything else. So yeah.
Having pets.
Yes. Yes, exactly. That connection to another sentient being. And, for the people who love pets as you do, they have personalities and they're different, and they're right. They all have different ways that you connect with them. Right. So
absolutely. And,
there's Brother Scott, before I forget, you triggered I thought of that song by Alan Jackson, The Older I Get. And the lyric that you made me think of was, the older I get, the truer it is that it's the people you love, not the money and stuff, that makes you rich.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Beautiful.
That's the good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I think that everyone can gain hope tonight if they go away from this and they just take a couple of minutes to be a little more connected to the things that won't increase their bank account, that won't, necessarily directly put food on the table, but that will make them feel more connected to the people and to the love and to the energy around them. You will get hope from that.
Could be just an okie and a smile. Do it. Like that by itself makes a difference in people's lives and in yours. Would you agree, Scott?
Absolutely. 100%, brother.
We better wrap her up, my friend.
Smile at somebody. Go out there and smile at somebody. That's an easy thing to do. If you're a man, try not to look like a creeper when you're doing it. I guess if you're a woman, that's true too. But yeah, live your life to your best. You are enough.
Exactly. Keep yourself well. We will join you next week for another issue of Hopeifiers. If you have suggestions, if you have comments, if you want to come on the show, here's my cell phone number. Shoot me a text, give me a call. Okay.
I promise all of you to have my video problem solved by next week. I will StreamYard, and I will spend some time getting connected this week. And I won't cheat on my dear Zoom, which I use all the time and like. I will figure StreamYard out, and we will solve this problem out.
Okay.
Okay. Take care, everyone. Take care, Al.
Okay. Good night. Gita Matson.